The UFC has a major White House problem. Can't believe I'm saying that, but if you're unaware, the UFC are planning a big event at the White House lawn. They've been hyping it up for, it feels like a year at this point when they got the okay from President Trump to do so. It'll probably be International Fight Week because that's usually they're one of their biggest cards. It's like International Fight Week and then the November card at MSG. They try to stack those two cards. And you figure, okay, like they're gonna really stack this card as they normally would, but they're gonna even try to do it bigger than that. They've been hyping this thing up for a while now, especially Dana White. He comes out on social media and he says, hey, you know what? I'm gonna start matchmaking for the UFC White House card, which is kind of funny because he said that he was out of the matchmaking business, but I guess he's back in. I guess I don't know. It's very unlike Dana White to ever lie, but they have a major issue because. And I don't mean to make this a political video, but it's become clear, I think, to a lot of people that this administration is very, and this is nothing wrong with being this, but very like pro-American and trying to show that we are the best and we have the best and everything's the best and I'm the best and, you know, all that. So what is the UFC going to do for a main event when they don't have an American that's even close to being the best in their division? Like, what are they going to do? You know, the first card on the Paramount card, it's headlined by Paddy Pimblett, Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje ends up taking Paddy Pimblett to the woodshed and winning a UFC interim title. But I think along with everybody else, goes, okay, great, and we're happy for Justin. And I'll never turn down watching a Justin Gaethje fight. But Ilia Topuria announcing he's coming back, that's a problem for Justin Gaethje. That's like a real problem. Because Ilia Topuria sleeps everybody. He sleeps the unsleepable. You know? Max Holloway, no problem. I'll put you to sleep. Charles Oliveira, 1 round in. He's the Spanish Conor McGregor. He says what he's going to do. He goes out there and does it. And do you think for 1 second that the President of the United States is going to want to watch an American get slept on the White House lawn? The answer to that is fuck and no. But what is the UFC going to do? They have overhyped this card, and they're bound to underdeliver. Because ideally, what I think they wanted to do was Jon Jones against Tom Aspinall. Now, Jones has been ducking Tom Aspinall for 2 years now, 2 years plus. But with Tom Aspinall having recent double eye surgery, he's going to be out of that fight. And not only that, you probably have to rematch a Cyril Gane, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that the UFC just skips Cyril Gane if Tom Aspinall were to fight. That I always thought made the most sense. You've got American versus England on the White House lawn, the greatest of all time. Even though I think he would lose, he's going to at least put up a fight against Tom Aspinall. It's the heavyweight division. It's always got, you know, the lore and the prestige of being the heavyweight division, even though it's the most shallow division in the sport. I always thought that made sense. Jon Jones versus Cyril Gane, no one cares about. Like, nobody. Because all anyone wants to watch is Tom Aspinall. Now, the UFC could easily do the logical thing here. And they could go out and sign arguably the best heavyweight in the world in Francis Ngannou and bring him back. But again, you've got an immigrant who will probably sleep Jon Jones on the White House lawn. I don't know what they do. Every American option, I feel like, that could headline this card is likely to lose, and badly. It's just hard for me to imagine that Jon Jones goes in there having 2 fights at heavyweight. He hasn't fought in, I don't know, a year and a half at this point at heavyweight. Not that he's out of shape, but he hasn't fought in a year and a half. And he's going to go in there against a younger Francis Ngannou and beat him? He's already fought Cyril Gane, so that makes no sense. His last fight was against a 44-year-old firefighter. So then you go Justin Gaethje again, but like, you kind of got to hope that Ilia Topuria is not ready. And even if he's not ready, who do you match up Justin Gaethje against? Do you do a rematch on Max Holloway? I would love that. And I think that's what probably the UFC is hoping for. That they can put a situation where Max Holloway goes out there and ends up beating Charles Oliveira and ends up offering Justin Gaethje a rematch. Because you got to remember, even though Max Holloway beat the brakes off of Justin Gaethje in that fight and then had the most epic knockout probably in my opinion, ever. I mean, this pointing at the ground and dusting him with 1 second left, that to me is probably the greatest of all time. But with all of that said, I do think that in that fight, it was completely changed at the end of the first round when Max broke Justin's nose. I think you're seeing a different fight if that doesn't happen. But even if they do end up doing a rematch, there's no way to live up to the hype of the first one. But at least in that situation, you've got two Americans going after each other for an interim title. But Ilia Topuria, once again, he said he's ready to go. I just don't know what they do. The only logical, to me, big money fight, where other than Max versus Justin, where you've got two Americans going at in a main event that would do numbers and draw, but it relies on Max beating Charles Oliveira for the BMF belt, and then you can put like BMF belts on the line and interim titles. All these fake titles, all these interim titles and BMF titles and all that bullshit. You could throw them on the line, throw them all in a pile. All right, winner take all, loser go home match. That makes sense. The other one that is the most logical that would make sense would be Michael Chandler against Conor McGregor. Now, Dana's already said that Conor McGregor won't end up fighting on the White House lawn, even though he wants to. But we all know that this is a superstar-driven industry, and this is the same guy that said that John Jones would never fight in the UFC again, and now he can't, make a sentence without saying that John Jones is the greatest heavyweight or the greatest fighter of all time. So that to me is a situation where, okay, Conor McGregor has had such a long layoff, and even though Michael Chandler is about as cringeworthy as you can get, he's the Drake of MMA, the Jason Tatum of MMA. He just goes out there, he gets his face beaten up, and then he says, "Are you not entertained?" He's at least been fighting. And Conor McGregor is a draw. He's one of the few people, if not the only person, that can go out there and main event a card where there are no belts on the line because it's going to do numbers. And in that situation, you could theoretically see Michael Chandler coming out on top. But again, the UFC has a major problem because this is not just a White House card with a cool backdrop that you can put, in UFC 5 or 6 or whatever the latest iteration of the video game is. This is supposed to be oh God, how do I put this? A billboard on American fighters. Don't get it twisted. This isn't supposed to be a thing about the sport. This is supposed to be a propaganda piece about how great American fighters are, and the problem is the UFC doesn't really have them right now. You go up and down the top 15, and there's not a lot of Americans on there, and if they are on there, they're not headlining the White House card, or more importantly, they're not headlining International Fight Week. They're not worthy of it. So I don't know what the hell they're going to do. And I feel like I can't be the only one that feels like this is going to be a disaster. Because I just have a sinking suspicion that they're going to end up matchmaking this thing and then fights are going to end up pulling off and you're going to end up having a very meh card. A very Turning Point USA halftime show type of card. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think and then who should end up main eventing it. I don't care about the White House card. I just care about a good pay-per-view personally. I mean, the backdrop of the White House does nothing for me. Fighting a bunch of fighters fighting in front of the Epstein files does nothing for me. I just want good fights. But Dana White has really shoved himself into a corner by hyping this up so much that I don't see how he delivers. Let me know what you guys think. As far as the comment goes, I'm probably only going to respond to channel members, so support the channel by becoming a channel member. You could also subscribe, hit thumbs up if you like this, smash that thumbs down button if you thought this video sucked. But yeah, I'm going to go. I got food like 20 minutes ago, and I haven't eaten it, so I'm going to go do that now. Joining me now is the preeminent Flyers beat reporter. He, I wouldn't say you got in a hot water, but you were definitely circulated quite a bit last week.
Oh, yeah.
For an interview that you may or may not have been a part of. Charlie O'Connor from PHLY. Charlie, how are you?
Doing okay. It's nice to have this week to not have to think about the Flyers all the time, to be honest with you.
And you know what? And that's what I love is that you're off for the Olympic break, and then I immediately am like, hey, I know that you've checked out of the Flyers. Let's talk about the Flyers for 20 more minutes. And you're like, yeah, I got nothing else to do.
Yeah, let's do it. Why not?
Let's jump right into that interview. Now, you were a coward and you didn't ask the tough question, but Bill Matz did, because Bill Matz is a man of the people.
Exactly.
And he stared Rick Tocchet dead in the eye and he said, "Yo, Chief, let's play some Matvey Michkov. I'm not here to watch Noah Cates. I'm here to watch Matvei Michkov. And in all seriousness, Takit's answer I thought was a good one. If you're a coach, it's kind of what you want your coach to say. But overall, what was your takeaway from Taka basically being like, look, the kid came into camp and he wasn't in shape, and we're trying to kind of get him to play two-way hockey. I personally, I felt like it was very Coach O'Brien from D3, the Mighty Ducks, with Charlie Conway. Yeah. You know, we're playing two-way hockey here.
But two-way hockey here.
What was your takeaway from it?
Yeah, I mean, I think my takeaway in the moment, because I was obviously there. I was sitting, 2 feet away from the guy. My thought in the moment was, oh man, he's being a little combative here. Like, he's really pushing back on this. The other thing I thought was that most of what he said was nothing new. We had known dating back to, I would say, like late October, I think is when it really started to come out that that Michkov didn't have the best summer. They didn't come to camp in the best of shape. That's when things started being reported. The local beats reported it. The national people confirmed it, reported it. Spit and Chicklets had it on their podcast. Like, it was well known that he didn't have a great summer. So that was nothing new. I think what was new was, number one, the fact that he didn't straight up say, and Danny Briere later tried to walk it back, but he strongly implied that Michkov hadn't been going to treatments on time, and that was a sticking point. But the other thing was just that everybody knew that he wasn't in camp. He didn't come to camp in the best of shape. But I think the thought process was that, by the end of January, you would hope that this has been resolved. And then Takit's still bringing it up. We're talking 4 months into the season, and people understandably were like, hey, how has he not fixed this problem since a problem that dates back to September? Shouldn't we be past this, and shouldn't you now be giving him minutes? So I think that was my big takeaway. Was, number one, I was surprised how defensive he was. Number two, I was surprised that he's still using the out of shape thing from back in camp to justify the low minutes. And number three, I was very surprised about the implication that he was showing up late for treatments, because that was something that I hadn't heard at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough situation because if you're obviously for the Flyers fan, you want to see Matvei Michkov, like Trevor Zegras, those are the future of the team. If you're a coach, it's like, how do I reward kind of bad behavior, but how do you continue to bring up he's not in shape if you're playing him 11 minutes a game when he probably should be playing more? He's not the first young superstar to be in like a new coach's doghouse. I remember Matt Zuccarello with the Rangers. Like, he was shipped off to the KHL because Tortorella would not play him. And then as soon as Tortorella was out and Alain Vigneault came in, he was like, this is ridiculous. Like, this kid's really good. But in that instance, Tortorella was shipped out. Now, Rick Tocchet is new to the team. He is a buddy of Keith Jones. I think it would have been a shock to anybody if Rick Tocchet wasn't the head coach of the Flyers in the offseason. But what are the odds that he continues to be if this is an issue? Because it did seem like Danny Briere's comments were like, this is ridiculous. Like, we're pressing him to play him more, and he's just not doing it.
Yeah, I think kind of where I'm at with it is next year is going to be the tell. Because I think this year at this point, and I'm speaking about Tocchet, I'm speaking about Briere, I'm speaking about the entire front office. I think everybody is just kind of collectively decided in the organization that this year is just kind of a wash, that, Michkov's going to play out the rest of the year, and he's going to finish with a decent amount of points, but not a particularly impressive amount of points. And it is what it is. He got off on the wrong foot, both in terms of training and in terms of his relationship with Tocchet. And it's just not going to be fully resolved this year, that, he's not going to get more than 15, 16 minutes in games, and he's not going to have his breakout. I think what it really boils down to is how next year plays out, because, and I made this point on our show, I equate this to the way the relationship between John Tortorella and Travis Sanheim played out. So first year, John Tortorella comes, and obviously Sanheim had been here for a long time, and they butted heads. Tortorella couldn't stand it. Hated his game, hated everything about the way he played, thought he was soft, thought he was overrated, didn't want to give him ice time, and they clashed. And it boiled over in Calgary because Sanheim had like all of his family going into that game, and then Tort scratched him like the morning of. So all of his family was just in the arena for a game that Sanheim wasn't going to play. And that's where it was a classic Torts move, like such a John Tortorella move.
I completely forgot about that.
But my point is that relationship looked like it was on fire. And Travis Sanheim ultimately almost got traded that summer. He would have gotten traded if Torrey Krug wouldn't have executed his no trade clause. He would have been playing for St. Louis. So Sanheim stays. And what does he do? He's like, you know what? I want to prove this guy wrong. So he goes out, has an absolutely killer summer, works his tail off, gets to, makes himself the strongest he'd ever been as an NHL player. And to Tortorella's credit, immediately they buried the hatchet. And by the end of October of that second season, Torts was playing Sanheim 30 minutes a night and praising him constantly. And I interviewed Travis Sanheim for an article I'm doing for him, because he's going to be playing for Team Canada at the Olympics. And Sanheim straight up told me, he said, I would not be where I am if John Tortorella didn't do that to me. That the day that John Tortorella got let go, I specifically called him to thank him and told him I would not have made Four Nations and obviously he didn't know he was going to make the Olympic team at that time, but I would not have made the Four Nations team had you not done what you did to me that first year. So I appreciate it in the end. They got past it. And if Matvei Michkov this summer has a monster summer in terms of training, does what he didn't do last summer, gets himself in tip-top shape, I would hope that Rick Tocchet doesn't hold a grudge and does what John Tortorella did with Sanheim, where it's like, you know what? Yeah, I was frustrated with you in year one, but year two, clean slate. You clearly put the work in over the summer. Now I'm going to use you like the future star that everybody wants to believe you are. And we're going to see what happens. If that's the way it plays out, then I think everything's fine. Then you could just easily just look at this past year as just a wash. It didn't work out, but it was just a speed bump on his road to being a 100-point winner. Now, if Michkov again has a bad summer, then I have no idea what's going to happen. Then the Flyers are going to be legitimately ticked off at it. Right now, they're willing to just be like, hey, he was a 20-year-old kid. He blew off some steam in the summer. Whatever, we'll forgive you. So number one, Michkov has to have the good summer. But assume he does have the good summer. If he has the good summer and Tocchet is still only playing him 13, 14 minutes a night and still taking little passive-aggressive shots at him in the media, then you have a problem. And then the Flyers are going to have to decide whether they want to pick the player over the coach. And I'm generally of the opinion that when you have high-end players, you always pick them over the coach because you're probably going to fire the coach in a year or two anyway, because coaches in the NHL have such a short shelf life. Like it's kind of like if you pick the coach over the player, then in a year you're going to fire the coach anyway, and then you're going to wish you picked the player over the coach. So to me, it's year two that's going to decide it. And Michkov has to do his part. He has to work his tail off in the summer, but assuming he does, and everybody I talked to in the organization thinks that he learned his lesson and he's going to go balls to the wall and he's going to have a great summer. If he does, Tocchet better get on board. And if he doesn't get on board, I don't know how much longer he'll be coaching this team past next season.
I really wish the Sixers had learned that message about like picking the player over the coach. I'm thinking Longley over Jimmy Butler. Anyway, yeah, look, I mean, Michkov isn't the first guy to come into camp and not be in shape. Like I remember Theo Fleury with Calgary, like his second year he came in and he was actually in incredible shape, but it wasn't good for his body type. And he found himself in the AHL. He had to work his way back. I think you're right. Like the struggle right now is like, what kind of attitude does Michkov have? Is it like I'm the shit and I don't need to do this? Or is it all right, we got to make this thing work? And for a 20-year-old kid, like we all remember when we were 20, you couldn't tell me anything. And especially, well, you can't tell me anything now.
That is true.
But especially when you're like the shit, you're the guy in Philly. And I think the struggle with the Flyers, correct me if I'm wrong, is the fact that you have the coach and the two guys in the front office, all former players that know what it means to win. But the front office guys are like, yeah, but okay, but he's the future. Like we need him on the ice. We need him to keep our jobs basically. So it's a tough situation for, I feel like, everybody involved. But I know a lot of people that I talk to that are just Flyers fans are like, yeah, fire Tocchet. And I'm like, you can't really move on from him that quickly. But that's the big story. You guys ended up, as I said, making waves with the PHLY interview. You guys did a great job with that. Other than Matvei Michkov, let's look at some bright sparks of the Flyers. Trevor Zegras looks like he's back to being Trevor Zegras. What have you really noticed about the difference between his game this year and his game last year in Anaheim?
Yeah, it's a good question. He's been fantastic. That's looking like a slam dunk, home run trade for Danny Briere. And I mean, really, to me, and I've been hearing this dating back to the summer, so long before the season started. I just heard that, from people who were friends with Zegras, who hang out in the same circles as Zegras, that he really took this summer seriously, not even just in terms of training, but just in terms of mentality, that basically he wanted to prove to everyone in Anaheim and across the league, because he has a lot of doubters around the league. There are a lot of people in hockey circles that just don't think Trevor Zegras has got it, that all he cares about are Michigans and being on highlight reels and being on social media. He wanted to prove everybody wrong. And he really, really, had he had an axe to grind with a lot of people, and he used that to fuel him. And it became clear going into the season that, he had the right motivation, because number one, I mean, he showed up to camp in great shape. He was ready to go. From the jump, he looked good in camp. But even beyond that, like, he's taken improving defensively very seriously. And look, Trevor Zegras is never going to be a Mark Stone. Like, you don't want him being a Selke guy, but you don't want him being a liability. And he makes mistakes. Don't get me wrong. He's playing mostly the wing now. He has been playing center more recently, but mostly played the wing this year. And he makes some mistakes. He's had some breakdowns where he's missed coverages, but it's been rarely due to a lack of effort. He's flying around. When he makes a mistake, it's because he just had a misread. It's not because he was lagging back because he was hoping for a stretch pass. I mean, he has fully bought into this idea of, I want to prove all of my haters and all my doubters wrong. They don't think I can be a playoff guy. They don't think I have good enough grit in my game. They think I'm all flash, no substance. I mean, he came into last offseason and then this season intent on proving everybody wrong. And that's exactly what he's done. And I think that's, look, Anaheim screwed up that situation. Greg Cronin, in my mind, not a good coach. And he was way too hard on the kid. I think Pat Verbeek, for no reason other than Zegras wasn't a guy that he brought in, kind of tried to rock the boat, and he didn't like his style. So Anaheim screwed that up. Don't get me wrong. But Zegras isn't blameless. I mean, Zegras could have been more conscientious off the puck. Zegras could have, maybe added a little bit more, I guess, the little things, just like, the steak, it got to had some of that, like that foundation. And maybe he didn't have that in Anaheim, but losing the opportunity to succeed in Anaheim, I think that was a big wake up call. And I think that's a big part of it. Like, you talk about the Mishkov relationship with Tocchet, and admittingly, it's not great right now. The Mishkov relationship, or the Zegras relationship with Tocchet's great. I mean, those guys have hit it off from the jump. And I mean, Tocchet straight up asked him in the beginning of the year, like, do you want to be on social media or do you want to win games? And Zegras is like, oh, I want to win. And Tocchet now is like his biggest champion. And, Tocchet's Tocchet. Like, he's like the ultimate hockey man in terms of the way he's reviewed around the league. And now he's going to bat for Zegras, being like, I don't know what those other people thought about him, but all I've seen is a gamer. So all credit to Zegras. He's done a great job.
Yeah, I mean, and look, we all make mistakes. Like, even I make mistakes on the ice sometimes.
Once in a while.
Yeah. 10:30 at night. I'll leave you guys tickets. Yeah. So the Flyers, you mentioned how, like, he wants to be a playoff performer. It's not happening this year. They're 8 points out of a playoff spot, but they're in a weird situation. I feel like the Flyers find themselves in this situation quite a bit, where you could see a situation playing out where they win like 3 or 4 games and they start convincing themselves, oh, we're only 4 games out of a playoff spot. You know what I mean? And you're sitting there watching from the press box going, this is not a playoff team. Like, they're just not. So let's go with the idea that they're not a playoff team, because it'd be hard pressed to think that they were. And the trade deadline comes around. Who is, in your opinion, the most likely to be ushered out?
I mean, it's a good question because they don't have a lot of obvious pieces. Like, the one guy who they should be trying to sell, and I suspect they are, is Rasmus Ristolainen. Like, he's got 1 more year left on his deal. He's a guy you should be trying to trade. He's in his 30s. He's not going to be part of the future. The problem is he's been hurt the last 2 years. And I just don't think there aren't going to be that many teams that are interested in going for a guy. Like, Ristolainen's selling point is like, he's the big physical guy you need in the playoffs, but with his injury history, how can you trust he's even going to be healthy for the playoffs, or he's going to make it through the first round?
I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like too, like, if you're a team looking to buy for the playoffs with the stacked draft that's coming up, you're probably unlikely to give up a first round pick for him. And even if the Flyers were to get a first round pick, it would probably be in 20s.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, with the rising cap, like, it'll help them, but
yeah.
I feel like next year would probably be more likely to get the first round pick that they would probably desire for him.
Let me put it this way. I think if a team called up the Flyers and they're like, look, we'll give you a first round pick, but it's got to be 2027, I think they would take that in an instant. I don't even think they would hesitate. I just don't think even that's going to be out there. Like, I think the best offers you're going to get for Risto, if anything, are, maybe if you're lucky, a second round pick. I think you might see teams throw a third. And at that point, the Flyers just like, well, we'll wait and we'll hope he stays healthy, and then we could trade him at the deadline next year. So Risto, to me, is the guy where if there was a good enough offer, like, I would trade Risto for a second. I would, just because like they got guys coming up, clear out a spot. It's not like they've really needed him this year. He's been injured for a lot of the year and they were perfectly fine without him. So I'd move him, but I just don't know what kind of offers are going to be out there. The guys who they'll probably get offers on and move are more just like the pure depth guys. Like, not that he's that particularly impressive, but like somebody will probably toss the Flyers a 5th or a 6th round pick for like Noah Juleson. Maybe if there's a team that wants a fighter, just in case a playoff series gets out of hand, maybe somebody throws an offer for Delorier. Like those are the guys, the guys on expiring deals where it's sort of like what value did they really bring the Flyers at this point? Those guys will probably go. But in terms of blockbuster moves, like the one guy who they could have potentially moved was Christian Dvorak, but they chose to resign. Like he was on an expiring deal. He was on a 1-year deal. Now he's resigned. So like he's not going to get traded. Risso's got 1 more year left. I just don't know what kind of interest there's going to be. And then the other guys they have, like do I think, and I think he's had a good year, especially since December. Like, do I think the Flyers are going to make Owen Tippett untouchable? No, like I think they would move him, but I don't think they're going to trade him for like a draft pick. I think they would move him in a hockey trade, if they could get a center or if they can get a defenseman. And those are the kind of deals that like they're off-season deals. They don't pop up, generally speaking, at the deadline, because at the deadline, you have a bunch of contenders that are looking to not subtract from their team. They're looking to add. They're like, well, yeah, we'll give you a draft pick and a prospect because we want to try to win the cup this year. Not like we're going to trade away our number 3 defenseman to get a winger because then they're out of number 3 defensemen. So I'm not sure the Flyers are going to be that active at the deadline. I'm sure they're going to be looking at hockey trades. It's just the deadline isn't usually where you see a lot of big hockey trades go down.
Yeah, I mean, the only one I could think of, and I know there's more, but one that pops up into mind is like Casey Middlestad for Bowen Byram.
Yeah.
And, that was, I understood it from both sides on that instance. You've already got power play quarterbacks. You don't really need Bowen Byram, but, and then Casey Middlestad was a disaster for Colorado. But what is your biggest overall for the NHL season? What is your biggest surprise so far?
Biggest surprise? It's a really good question about biggest surprise. I'm shocked that, and I don't even know if this is biggest surprise, but like I didn't think that Tampa still had this level of contention in them. Like I knew they were good. I didn't realize that they were still one of the premier teams in hockey. And what you see them do over the last couple of months, like everybody on that team's been getting hurt. Like Hedman hasn't been playing. They points been out, and they still just keep winning. And I had thought that, they won their cups at the beginning part of this decade. Then they kind of went through a down. It looked like Florida was taken over as like that team in that division. Now, Florida, obviously this year, they've been injury ravaged because they played, 3 straight cup final. Like that happens. Guys are just exhausted. I expect them to be back in form next season. This is probably just a down year, but I did not think that the Lightning were still this good. And it just seems like they've done a really great job of retooling on the fly. Like they got Radish out of nowhere as like a dark horse Norris candidate. Like they just find these guys and then they throw them in there and suddenly they become impact players. I mean, even Brandon Hagel, like I liked Hagel, where before, but I never expected him to turn into an Olympian. Like I didn't think he was going to be that good, and they were right. So props to them. Like I'm shocked that the Lightning, I think at this point, like they're probably going to go into the Eastern Conference playoffs as the favorite to represent the East, right? Like I thought they were past that point, and it seems like they're very much not.
Yeah, I mean, John Cooper he's a really, really good coach. One of the worst takes I ever had was that John Cooper would get fired over who was the kid they traded to
Drouin?
Montreal? Drouin, yeah. I was like, oh, that'll cost him his job. This is why I interview people and I don't actually like talk about the sport. I don't know what I'm talking about. Hit thumbs down for that, everybody. You mentioned the Olympics, so real quick before I let you go, who do you think ends up winning the gold?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be boring and I'm going to go Canada. Now, I will say that if they continue to hold towards Jordan Binnington as their starting goalie, I don't think they can win because I think he's been real bad. I know he was good in the Four Nations gold medal game or championship game, whatever you want to call it, but he's been even worse this year. So,
it's awesome.
Like that is a dramatic weakness, especially in comparison to the U.S. that has 3 goalies that are better than probably any of the goalies that Canada has. But I still think Canada just is they have the best firepower up front, and I think the U.S. might have really blown it by some of these guys they left home. Like, I don't know why you don't take Jason Robertson. That makes zero sense to me. Zero sense to me. And I think they could have had a much stronger roster, and they instead chose to like bring guys that are, oh, we got to have the role players. And it's like, well, yeah, I get it to a degree, but like this guy's one of the top goal scoring forwards in the NHL, and you're just like, nah, we're good.
Yeah, he's having. I still am blown away that they might trade him because
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that and go into the playoffs. But yeah, it seems like they kind of watched the movie Miracle.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, we'll just do that. We'll just get a bunch of Rob McClanahans and we'll call it a day. So yeah, I hope you're wrong on that.
I hope I am too.
Yeah, you got a week off. What are you doing?
What am I doing? I'm still working. I'm still doing our show on PHLY Flyers every day. But gonna take a long weekend next weekend. That'll be nice.
What do you? But like, what does that mean?
Oh, going up the Poconos.
See, like, how was I supposed to know that? Like, no one knew where you were gonna go.
Yeah, that's
You're
fair.
just like, oh, I'm taking a long weekend. Like, it could have been anywhere.
Could have been anywhere.
I could have, it could go to be King of Prussia.
That's true. That's true. I could have visited my old buddy Pat.
I don't live in King of Prussia.
I know, but I don't know if you want to reveal where you live. So,
oh, I live in Roxborough. Everybody can come by, say hi. Roxborough, Manayunk area. Yeah, and the parking's terrible. But yeah, you could have. You're not going to, but you could have. Okay. All right. Well, I got nothing really else going on. More to talk about. So, but thanks. What's your Twitter handle? I guess.
Yeah. Twitter handle is Charlie O_Con. And yeah, and then check us out at the PHLY Sports YouTube channel and watch our PHLY Flyers show on every day.
Yeah, I mean, me and Charlie joke around a lot because we've known each other for like 5 years, but the job that you do and Bill Matz do, really, really good, really strong Flyers content. So everybody that is watching this, go check them out, read Charlie's stuff, become a diehard, all that good stuff. You'll get your money's worth. That's the only time I'll ever compliment you. So,
well, thanks,
and then last thing, because it's I mean, this does nothing to do with hockey, but my oldest got Super Smash Brothers on the Switch.
Ooh, nice.
I was telling him how like you used to just absolutely run train on people.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you used to dominate people.
I was in my prime. Those were the days, man.
And now it's all downhill. But exactly. I just wanted to let you know that the next generation of nerds, they know about the legend that happened in Northeast Philadelphia. All right, that's all I got. Say goodbye. Does anybody else get the feeling that we're about to enter the offseason from hell when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles? Because so far it hasn't been great. No, not at all. I mean, let's like recap for a second what's gone down with the Philadelphia Eagles so far, okay? They finally fire Kevin Patullo. I'm sorry. They finally take away his OC title. They decide, you know what, maybe you could stay in the organization because he earned that, right? So he ends up going to Miami. That got announced today. But they finally take that away after punting an entire season because, God forbid, we hurt Nick Sirianni's coaching tree and hurt his feelings. No, we can't do that. So we have to continue to push a square peg in a round hole when everybody could realize that Kevin Patullo and in the offense and Nick Sirianni in the offense, they didn't have a fucking clue. So they go on the hunt for an OC. And you would think conventional wisdom would be that this would be one of the more enticing jobs in the NFL when you have a loaded offense. So that O-line, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, like, what's the problem? And yet they struck out repeatedly on their top candidates. It forced them to have a wide net approach. You know, we're interviewing everybody now. Well, yeah, you're interviewing everybody because your first couple of choices decided to go to LA and then Tennessee of all places. Oh, and to college. So right away, like red flags start going up, like sirens start, the alarms start going off of like, what is the problem? And immediately me, as the president of the Nick Sirianni Hater Club, went to the head coach. Because it's hard for me to understand why OCs wouldn't want to come to Philly based on Jalen Hurts. That would be the other excuse of why they wouldn't want to come to Philly. But I think the more obvious thing is, no, working with Nick Sirianni must kind of suck if things are going bad. And before you rip me on this, let's think about this. If Nick Sirianni, with the way he has acted, if he were an opposing coach, if he weren't the Philadelphia Eagles coach, if you were unbiased with this, would you like him? Would you want to go work for him? When you have other options, this isn't like a situation of it's the only job. The answer by far is no. If Nick Sirianni were the Commanders' head coach, we would loathe this man. So I think that's the perception around the NFL. I don't get the idea that Nick Sirianni is thought of as this offensive guru around the NFL. How could he? I think he's thought of as a CEO type, which is a really nice way of saying he's a babysitter who is a vibes guy. And vibes guys are great, but the problem with vibes guys is you have to keep the vibe up when things aren't going well, and Nick Sirianni has proven time and time again that he doesn't know how to stop the ship from going into the iceberg. He has no idea how to steer the car away from danger when the brake lines get cut off. Like, he does not have a clue. When things are going great, he's peacocking around. When things aren't going great, he's pointing fingers, he's blaming people, and he decides to take over a few things. This causes Jeff Stoutland, the most respected O-line coach in the NFL, to say, yeah, fuck this, I'm out. Yeah, I'm not dealing with this. So again, it gives credence to the fact that Nick Sirianni is really the problem. The report comes out that Nick Sirianni and Kevin Patullo decided to take away the run game from Jeff Stoutland, which ended up causing him to say, you know what, I'm not really respected around here. That is an issue, a major issue. And the Philadelphia Eagles, I fear, are hitching their horse to the wrong wagon. And they're doing so because of two reasons. One, Nick Sirianni won a Super Bowl. I will die on this hill. Nick Sirianni didn't win a Super Bowl. Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio won that Super Bowl. Nick Sirianni just had a really nice seat and a Gatorade bath. That is it. But the second one is, I don't get the idea that Jeffrey Lurie likes change. Even though he's not opposed to it, I think he looks at consistent change as a dysfunctional organization. His first coach was Andy Reid. One of his first coaches was Andy Reid. And he lasted 13 years. I don't think he wants to get into the New York Jets every 2 years. We're looking for a head coach. And if you let Sirianni go, the optics aren't great because this is now the second head coach that's won you a Super Bowl that you have decided to let go within 2 years of winning that Super Bowl. So it might end up scaring off other candidates. You give Nick Sirianni more time. But I think giving Nick Sirianni more time to quote-unquote fix this is kind of like Nick Sirianni giving himself more time to quote-unquote fix the offense last season when it was very abundantly clear that there was no fixing it. So the Eagles are hitching their wagon to this guy that is not a boy wonder, that I don't think would be heavily sought out if he got let go, that doesn't really have a clue on how to run an offense, even though he's an offensive-minded head coach, who every time he touches the offense, it looks very high schoolish, very predictable. They're hitching their wagon to that guy because they're under the impression that he won them a Super Bowl. And it's not like that the Eagles aren't, impervious to fucking up. I think we're all under the impression that Howie Roseman has never messed up. And I think in this situation, he is messing up because they end up going out there and they end up hiring Sean Mannion. And I did a video on that. You can find it in the corner. I'm not a real big fan of the hire. But if Sean Mannion ends up working out and he comes in and he, gets the offense back on track, I'm not even saying he completely reinvents the wheel, but just gets them back on track, then he's probably gone at the end of the year because this team's really good with the current roster. But the reason I say we're about to enter the offseason from hell, or at least it feels like it, is because you still got the A.J. Brown situation lingering over everybody's head. Everybody is dissecting every comment he made on those podcasts that he did at Radio Row for info on whether or not he's coming back. I still contend that he's coming back. It's hard for me to imagine the Philadelphia Eagles can't make this work. He's under contract. He's one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL. You're trying to win a Super Bowl. It just makes sense to be like, look, give it a new OC, see how it goes. Adam Schefter was on with John Kincaid and Andrew Saltunis today, and he made a really good point. A year ago, you had Myles Garrett demanding trades and the Cowboys wanting to sign Micah Parsons to a long-term contract. Micah Parsons ends up getting traded, and Myles Garrett ends up signing that extension. But that's still lingering over everybody's head. So then you move on to the tight end position, which both tight ends are free agents. Grant Calcaterra, Dallas Goedert, you have no idea who your tight end is going to be. Okay, fine. Then you move on to the offensive line, which for the first time in a long time is a problem. And it's a problem not just because Jeff Stoutland just left, because you hired a guy that wasn't retained by the Vikings, even though his offensive line dealt with a lot of injuries. He wasn't retained. I don't think that's a great sign. But you bring this new guy in, who, by the way, nobody on the Eagles' offensive line has ever worked with anybody other than Jeff Stoutland. That's not to say that this guy won't be great. He very well could be. He could be better than Jeff Stoutland. I just don't really like well, let's go with the mystery box approach. I wouldn't have left Jeff Stoutland out of the building. I would have been like, whatever you want, basically. But deeper than that, you've got Tyler Steen at right guard, who was a problem last year. Like, disaster. Okay, then you've got Lane Johnson, who's been contemplating retirement for the past 5 years. It's eventually going to happen. Eventually, he's going to say, I don't need this. I'm a Hall of Famer. I have 2 Super Bowls. I'm constantly banged up. My ankle was caved in. Yeah, I'm good. I'm out. Will it be this year? Who knows, right? You'd figure that he would give the Eagles some info before free agency, but who knows? And then the report comes out that Landon Dickerson's considering retirement. And even if he's not considering retirement, how much longer does he have? Because the Eagles drafted this guy with no knees. And all he's done since being in the NFL is get banged up. Like, the dude has got to be hobbling around. He basically spent all of last year injured. I still don't know why they played him week 1 after having the surgery. But for his NFL career, it's been nothing but surgery. And he came into the league like that. So you've got a situation where potentially, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but potentially you need to replace 3 of your 5 starters on the offensive line. Now, I think Tyler Steen's a lock to be replaced, and I would be surprised if Landon Dickerson and Lane Johnson don't come back for next year, because I think they see that this team, if it stays as constructed, is loaded. But there is a chance that this just does not go right, that this just ends up being a disaster. Oh, by the way, Jalen Phillips is a free agent. You don't know what's going on with that. Nakobe Dean's a free agent. He was playing like an all-pro. You do have a feeling that if he left, he would end up continuing that all-pro somewhere else. But the Eagles did draft Jahad Campbell for a reason. There's just a lot of issues. Oh, and I didn't even mention Vic Fangio considering retirement. So how long does he have left? Maybe a year. Having fun. Glad we have Nick Sirianni as the head coach. He's not deterring anybody from coming to Philadelphia, clearly. I keep thinking back to that video of Saquon, and he signs, and he goes and meets with Nick Sirianni for the first time, but like he's since admitted like he hated Nick Sirianni before he joined the team, and of course it's like all kumbaya now. No, I love Nick Sirianni and blah blah blah, but to act like Nick Sirianni this offseason so far has not deterred people, has not turned people off from the city of Philadelphia. That is, you're blind. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you like this video. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this video sucked. If you leave a comment, let me know what you guys think about this. But I pretty much only prioritize channel members. So if you want to support the channel, become a channel member. I check every night, see if anybody has commented. And then, yeah, as always, though, go Birds.